But first, some important backstory. Canon was a large camera production company in the 90s with some revolutionizing products. Hot off the heels with their first digital camera, Canon wanted to expand their horizons with software creation, and in 1993, Criterion software got established. The lead devs behind Criterion were working on a 3D multimedia development tool even before Criterion's inception, and on the same month Criterion was founded, the development tool was released, which was known as renderware. Now, renderware is an engine that powered games in the late 90s and early 2000s, and it did power a ton of games. To ensure that Criterion sells their engine to other development teams, they have decided to do the smartest thing, and make showcases of renderware in the form of video games. Now, their first few games had a mixed reception, ranging from critics saying that the games were dull, to critics saying that Deep Fighter is, and I shit you not, a boring drag of a game that will surely lull you to sleep if you manage to keep it from killing yourself first. Damn, I guess you really did have a bad time, huh? Nevertheless, they all had one thing in common. They looked amazing for its time, with IGN even stating that Airblade was a brilliant advertisement for renderware. And it didn't go unnoticed, as there was one small company that decided to use their engine for their upcoming games. A small franchise you probably did not hear from. Grand Theft Auto. Nothing big, right? Those games were definitely not genre-defining. Yes, the 3D GTA trilogy and the subsequent PSP games used renderware, and if you played those games on a PS2, you know how beautiful the scenery looked like. But this isn't a Rockstar video, this is a Burnout video. And to get back to the point, Criterion had one more game in their sleeve, a game that they have been making since 1999, and took inspirations from a movie like Ronin, and especially the scene Crashing the Case, where two opposing cars crashed into each other, and in November of 2001, Burnout released. Okay, so I'm going to piss people off. I know. However, do know, this game and the sequel were played after I played the rest of the Burnout games, so my view regarding the games is going to be skewed nevertheless. I will be level-headed as much as possible, but I most likely will have some bias. I apologize in advance. So what is Burnout? It's an arcade racer where you race against other racer and the time itself. I mean, it's a simple format, and it shows. The game looks fine, it's a game from 2001, and for the age, it really does look cool. The game is structured in a Grand Prix format where you have to do 3 races, or 1 if you're doing a marathon, and the main goal is to pretty much win. After you beat a few Grand Prix, you get to do face-offs. Face-off is an event type where you 1v1 a car, and if you win, you unlock it. You can unlock some cool cars like the Roadster or the tow truck. Yes, a fucking tow truck can be used. It's not good, but it's funny. Survival is a game mode where if you crash, you die. That's pretty much it. Yeah, this is a filler mode. It's kinda cool, but it is not necessary. And that's it for the game. I mean, I can talk about the menus. Okay, listen. I have more things to talk about the game, but I really do need to clarify this. This is the first entry, and just like pretty much every other game, chances are the first entry will be the worst. This is the case with this one. Now, the game isn't bad, but considering how good the subsequent entries are, this game really pales in comparison. I'm not going to bash this game, in fact I'm going to talk about the positives. The game's core feature, the crashing, is well made. The crashes are alright, the car's damage model is great for the time, and the ability to see the damage output in dollars is a neat feature that ties into the next segment. After you crash a few times and deal approximately $200,000 in damages, the music switches the tone from a more upbeat tone to a dark and grim tone. Wait a second, this game is literally Thrill Drive. Yeah, this game was inspired by Ronin and was kinda bogus. In fact, the devs went to Konami to originally make a console port of Thrill Drive, only for Konami to reject their pitch. Knowing Konami, I want to say that they dodged a massive bullet, but you can see a ton of similarities between this game and Thrill Drive. To get back to the grim music, the music is made to be really tense, and it's semi-dynamic. You see, you have 2 tracks that loop. The tense one that you encounter when you have crashed too many times, and the track that plays when you are low in time. It adds to the tenseness and stress when you end the race with 5 seconds left. The upbeat music is quite good, but the grim, tense music is just better. Another core feature is that the game has burnouts. Burnout is a boost meter that you have to fill up by doing some dangerous driving. You have to drive dangerously, which includes drifting, revving an oncoming lane, and doing near misses. Once you fill up the bar, you have the ability to do a burnout. You gain extra top speed, the FOV changes, heartbeat sound effect starts playing, and the music gets muffled. Additionally, if you drive dangerously enough while boosting, you can get a burnout chain, and it's uncapped, so you could technically do it for the entirety of the track. Granted, most likely you won't be able to do so. That's pretty much it when it comes to all of the good stuff. This game is rough. Starting off with the tracks, they are cool looking, but driving in them is kind of a pain. The roads are not built for the handling model this game has. Speaking of the handling model, the cars, which they are reactive, the handling is just kinda shit, and that is purely down to the drifting. This game is Break to Drift. Now I don't know if Burnout was the first Break to Drift game, I really don't think it is, but Criterion is usually the best at making Break to Drift handling. Saying that, this is not that great. The cars are technically drifting, but the drifting angle is not good, especially for the curved maps, which most of them are. Another thing that is bad is the sense of speed. Burnout games again are known as explosive games that feel fast and are fast. This game ain't it. The sense of speed is just slow. What also doesn't help is the fact that the cars aren't really fast. Cars don't really go above 160 miles per hour. The Burnout feature sucks. While the feature itself is cool, the execution is poor. The first issue is that gaining boost is painfully slow. Second issue, and a big issue, is the fact that there is a delay between the start of driving dangerously and the start of gaining boost. To explain, if I start drifting, there is a delay before you start getting boost. So if you do short drifts, or drive in incoming lanes for a little bit, nitros gained wouldn't count. Near misses are hard to get, as you really need to be close to a traffic car to the point where you risk a crash. And you would think that with shit ton of traffic, this wouldn't be an issue. The traffic is fucking dog shit. This is what completely ruins the game. Fuck this game for it. Traffic AI is good in its core. When you drive in the oncoming lane, the traffic moves away. This is exploitable as you can drive on the center line and the traffic will not hit you as they will steer away. And you will abuse it as if it is effectively the best way to gain boost and maybe even chain burnouts. The bullshit traffic cutting across the road is the worst aspect of the game. No wait. Unavoidable bullshit traffic cutting across the road is the worst fucking aspect of the game, and you will crash into them every single time. And that's where I just give up on talking about the game. Mostly because the next game is so much better to the point where the experience is a stark contrast compared to this game. Now before Burnout 2, let's talk about skating, or more accurately Airblade. While Airblade wasn't particularly a great game, it was still Renderware's piece de resistance, and a certain big publishing company took notice of Criterion's work, that being EA. Now whilst I like to shit talk modern EA wasn't much different back in the early 2000s. Medal of Honor was a World War II franchise that was directed by Steven Spielberg. Yes, the guy that directed that one dinosaur movie was a gamer. Anyways, Medal of Honor games were a success, and their third game, Allied Assault, is regarded as the best Medal of Honor game. Allied Assault was made by the extremely talented 2015 team, which EA acknowledged by ending the contract with the team to develop the games in-house. What a move. Activision noticed that EA pulled a stupid move, hired Vincent Zampella and Jason West, and founded Infinity Ward. Infinity Ward is responsible for the Medal of Honor killer known as Call of Duty. I could talk about COD and how it influenced first-person shooter, however this is a Burnout video, and to get back to the point, EA noticed Airblade, came up to Criterion, and asked them to make a remake of Skate or Die, which was a well-regarded franchise that had the last game in the early 90s. Criterion was very interested on working with EA and making the remake, but as the time went on and EA's requests became more and more demanding, with the Criterion team becoming incredibly stressed out, Fiona Sperry, the head of Criterion, decided to screw EA and cancel the work on the remake. The fallout caused the cancellation of their additional project, a Need for Speed title, and EA understandably blacklisted Criterion from working with EA, which Criterion at the time was okay with as this has happened right before the release of Burnout 2. Burnout 2 released a few months later, and this is where the Burnout as we know started. While Burnout was more or less a test demo and a renderer showcase, Burnout 2 is the game that shaped the franchise. If you ask any person in their late 30s or 40s, they will most likely say that this is their favorite Burnout, and it shows. The game was a massive success in Europe, and for a good reason. It's an amazing game and a massive improvement over the first game. The game starts you off with a driving school where you get taught on how you play the game and gain boost, and after you complete that, you get to play a pretty good, no actually, pretty amazing game. I'm going to start off with all of the small improvements the game has made first. The visuals are a fair bit better than the first game, but talking about the visuals is not the most important part of the game. The audio took a bit of a hit variety wise and isn't as good as the first Burnout game, as there is no audio tracks that play when you crash too much. The music tracks are significantly better though, and I will talk about that in a bit. The sound effects are also better. The car engine and exhaust sound is more aggressive, and the crashing effects are more raw sounding. Speaking of crashing, the car crash physics took a massive improvement. Instead of car bending and warping, parts can now fall off, making it feel like the cars are more fragile. Crashes themselves are also more spectacular. The cars will fly off more at great speeds, the cars feel lighter, but that's a big plus as again, the crashes are more spectacular and more fun to look at. Okay, that's all of the small improvements. The presentation of this game has improved so much. Whilst the first game looked like a tech demo, this game is just more presentable. From a better looking, more functional menu, to stuff like how there is a distance timer between you and your closest rival when you pass a checkpoint. And small details how some cars have a digital speedometer and some have analog. And all of it feels really good to look at. The handling is improved by a little bit. Drifting is now considerably better, but what matters more is that the maps are amazing. You see, while the first Burnout game did look pleasing when it came to the maps, Point of Impact completely beats the shit out of the first game when it comes to the atmosphere and visual fidelity, and the design alone. The maps are super varied, with locations ranging from snowy mountains to sunny beaches. What matters infinitely more is the map layout. This is where the game just clears the first game by a massive mile. The roads follow the handling model well, and the traffic? Oh god, the traffic is not annoying at all. Whilst yes, the number of traffic vehicles has been reduced, that is a good thing. Additionally, the game has for the most part removed the bullshit traffic location where you were guaranteed to crash. You also don't crash if you do as little as graze the traffic cars. This game is more forgiving when it comes to that, as the game wants you to go fast. Another thing that is important is the fact that you are not reliant on near misses to gain boost, because unlike in Burnout, gaining boost in this game is actually great. Methods of gaining boost is the same like in Burnout, with the addition of gaining boost by doing airtime and doing a perfect lap. But the game is much more lenient when it comes to gaining boost. Boost gain is much faster and chaining burnouts is practically effortless. Unlike in the first game, where getting a chain burnout was an achievement, in this game you can get a 2 or 3 time combo without any sweat. Another cool detail is that unlike in the first game, the music amplifies and gets extra audio drags when you boost, which makes the music more tense and makes you want to chain boosts even more. A new feature in the franchise is the boost start, where if you wheel spin, release the throttle and then apply it immediately on go, you gain a quick head start. It's a bit finicky to get, but it really does launch you into the first place and gets you to top speed almost instantly. The game structure has also improved. Whilst the first game has 2 event type, this one has 4 and an extra one. Grand Prix returns, and it's the same like the first game. One change is the pacing. The races don't drag on unlike the first game, and the maps tend to have varying lap count. Shorter tracks have more laps, longer tracks have less. Point-to-point races are sprint races, and are self-explanatory. Face-Off has now been implemented into the main game mode menu, and it functions mostly the same as the first game, where you 1v1 the rival to unlock their car. This is also an improvement as the AI itself is much more aggressive, and the events truly feel like a chase event rather than just a 1v1 race. It is quite an amazing event, except one thing. To unlock a face-off, you need to win every race in the Grand Prix. You were second or worse in any of the races, and you still win the Prix, the face-off will still be locked. This is honestly such a dogshit blue ball decision, especially as you cannot restart a race in the Grand Prix. First game had restarts, granted limited, but you could still restart. In here, nah, you will redo the tournament if you finish second in one race. Honestly, this is the worst aspect of the game, and is the only bad thing regarding the game. Pursuit events are a new addition, where you are a cop, and your goal is to wear down the opponent's car to the point where you can deal the final blow and take down the car. You have a track limit before they escape, and if you do wreck them in time, you unlock their car. This is honestly a fun event, as you get to do what this game and the previous game are truly missing. Aggravated Assault. That also brings me to the cars themselves. The car list has really expanded compared to the last game, and each car feels way different from each other, even more so than the first game. You can pick a car that can drift well, but that is all it can do, even on a straight line. Or a car that is fuck boy. Or you can drive the cop car cause funny. Honestly, the car roster is pretty cool. Once you complete the main championship, you get to play the custom series championship, where you get 4 more Grand Prix events and 3 more chase events. This is where the game turns into complete CBT as the difficulty spikes up, mostly cause the car are batshit insane, but it's a mode that is really worth playing. That brings me to the last mode, and a staple to the franchise, the Crash mode. Crash mode is simple in this game, but it's also amazing. You have parts of the raceways that you race in, and the main goal is to crash as many traffic vehicles as possible. The more you crash, the bigger the multiplier gets. As well as the bigger the vehicle is, the more financial damage you will deal. Events start off easy, but they do get more difficult as you progress in the mode, to the point where a boost start will be a must to get the gold medal. The crash sites are super open. You can pick multiple lanes in some events, and some lanes have more cars, which result in a better payout. One flaw I do have with this game mode is that sometimes the events can end too soon. It's like there is an in-game timer that is not shown to us, and the event ends abruptly even if the traffic is still crashing. It's kind of a back decision, and the subsequent Burnout games have improved on that and the game mode itself. Speaking of subsequent Burnouts, I really don't have much to talk about when it comes to this game. I really enjoyed it, but if you're a fan of the series, you know that the next game is the most legendary, and quite possibly the best racing game ever made. But before that, I have Discord. That's it. To get back to burning out cars. After the success of Burnout 2, Criterion was on a roll, as the game was a massive success. That success, however, could not save Acclaim from bankrupting. Without Acclaim, one company smelled fresh blood in the water. Guess which company was that? Yep, EA went back to Criterion to offer them to publish the next Burnout game. With Criterion's previous experience with the ill-fated Skate or Die, it was clear that Criterion was not interested with current EA's leadership. So the team at Criterion told EA that they will let them publish the next Burnout game, but only on the condition that Criterion would have full creative freedom, without any of EA's interfering. EA surprisingly greenlit the idea, and after 7 months, Criterion showed them a demo which was received incredibly well by the internal testing team. Only thing that was left to pick was a subtitle to the Burnout title, which included stuff like Fuel Injection, Seek and Destroy, and most known by a lot of people, Crash and Burn, as the original game was planned to be more grim and dark. But EA went with one subtitle that we are now very familiar with, and after 8 months of cooking, Burnout 3 Takedown released. Yeah, this game is batshit insane. If Burnout 2 is a nice ribeye, Burnout 3 is an A5 Wagyu steak that Guga Foods himself made. This is the game that introduced me to the franchise, and my god, the first Burnout game I experienced was the definition of peak. You know, a game so good that even with its flaws, it's considered to be your favorite game ever. I and a lot of people consider this game to be peak, and for a good reason. At release, this game was universally acclaimed by fans and even critics, which is a hard thing to do. This game was in fact so good that it won 2004's Racing Game of the Year. Granted, its only competition was Rally Sport Challenge. I mean, Rally Sport was an amazing title, but Burnout 3 was just on another level. But what made Burnout 3 so good? Well, to start off, this game had a massive improvement visually, from much better texture work to higher polygon models. This game just looked better. Granted, that was partly due to a completely new real-time lighting and a better environmental design, but also partly due to the fact that the game was designed around 60 FPS while racing. Yes, the devs prioritized 60 FPS, purely so the game would feel good to play as the cars would be more responsive, especially while going fast, which you will do a lot, as the car's top speeds near the final classes have almost doubled. This isn't new though, as Criterion's mindset of 60 FPS gaming was a thing in the previous two Burnout games. Additionally, considering the cars move fast, there ain't no popping in this game. Speaking of cars moving fast, the sense of speed has been perfected in this game. Last two games visually felt fast, but in Takedown, the sense of speed has been cranked up to 11, which makes the cars feel incredibly fast. Hell, a 240 km/h car feels like I'm going Mach 1. Boosting feels like I am flying a goddamn rocket ship. Engine-wise, the new rendition of renderware is really amazing, and it was utilized incredibly well by not only Criterion, but also by Rockstar with GTA San Andreas. Technical standpoint aside, you might ask, Chris, how insane is this game? Okay. It's fucking batshit insane, as I said. First thing that you will notice is that car classes are separated into multiple classes. The game isn't just pick the fastest car and win anymore, it's more or less generalized. The cars are set into classes, and each class will have cars that have the similar speed and acceleration. Some cars might be faster than others in class, but it's not a huge difference. Plus, some cars are slower by design as they are heavier and handle better. The general structure of the game is similar to previous games, at least event type-wise, but that is where the similarities end. The second thing you will notice is that the presentation has completely changed. The UI design is completely different. Whilst Burnout 2 has its charm and is honestly a good looking game UI-wise, 3 just completely clears it in the visual representation of pretty much everything. The menus themselves are better looking, like the Burnout 3 video playing in the background that is also showing what you should expect from the game, to stuff like the World Tour globe just looking sick, and even the region maps looking cool, with tracks built around the maps, to things like the crashes. Oh my god, the crashes. That is also down to the damage model being completely overhauled. Whilst the damage was decently good in the last game, this game takes it to another level. Every part that can fall off will fall off, and the deformation itself of the cars has been massively improved. The wrecks can end up looking so mangled to the point where the cars are near unrecognizable. Speaking of spectacles, I should probably talk about the main big change of the game, and the core game feature that is in the subtitle of the game itself: Takedowns. Takedown is a brand new feature for the franchise where you can ram into the opponents and just take them down. It's so simple, yet the execution is perfect. Where do I start? Well, I'm gonna start off technically. You have a ton of ways to take down opponents. You can rear end them so hard the opponents completely lose traction and crash into the nearest obstacle. You can grind them to the wall to the point where the cars just flip the fuck out and wreck themselves. You can be the physical manifestation of their worst nightmare and psych them out. The options are limitless. Now, whilst you are taking down other enemies, you yourself are not immune. Plus, you can crash out the same way that you could with the previous Burnout games by being careless to the point where you crash hard into walls or the traffic. You can also get taken out by the rivals. Now, of course, you can deny that takedown, but the persistence of the rivals will range purely down to the aggression factor. You ever wonder why there are 3 colored markers above the rivals? Well, it's their aggression system. You see, the more you ram the rivals, the more angry will they become, and more aggressive they are. And more aggressive they are, higher the chances of them treating you like the cops would treat Mexicans with a broken taillight. Seriously, when the cars are red, they see red, they become red, and it is their highest priority to kill you. And if they do kill you, and they go out of the range, you're fucked. Whilst yeah, when the rivals crash you out, their aggression pretty much ends. Your ability to catch up to them if they leave your visible area? Pfft, lol, lamo even. Yeah, this game's rubber band is very insane. There are pretty much two levels of AI. The first level of the AI is the pussy level easy AI that is in your visible range, where the rivals are seemingly mentally challenged and are slow. The moment they leave your visible area, yeah no, the rubber band does kick in. It does the equivalent of truck ramming a deer. The speed that the rival reaches is just insane. And I don't mean cars just being a bit annoying insane. I mean half a mile ahead of you without you being able to catch them up insane. But this all could be avoidable. Once you can let the rivals pass and risk rivals surgically removing you from the gold medal, you can also just kill them. Impact time is a new feature where if you crash, you can become Avatar the Last Carbender and steer your wreck into the rivals for an aftertouch takedown as a final fuck you to the opponent. You can go from watching the wreck of your car to watching your wreck of the car wrecking another car. Or two. Breaker, but Burnout 3 just has that. And I got a 4-way takedown with it. And wrecking the rivals gives you boost. And boost matters in this game more than the last 3 games. And the way you get the boost, or the way boost even works, is different. Starting off, burnouts are gone. You can freely boost whenever you want. You don't have to rely on you having to do risky driving to fill up the bar, only to be forced to use it fully. Gaining boost in its core is similar to the previous games. You can drive dangerously by doing near misses, drifts and others, but frankly, who cares? Those only matter in a certain race type. There is another way of gaining boost, and that is by driving aggressively and causing damage to rivals. You see, ramming the rivals gives you boost, and a considerable amount. The more you ram into them, the faster you refill it. That is still slow though. The best way of gaining boost is to take down rivals. Not only do you refill your boost bar, but taking down rivals gives you an extra boost bar. Take down 2 more rivals and you get a full 4 times boost. And boosting on the max boost bar? Damn, its experience can only be rivaled but not beaten by the turbo system in Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. Crashing out takes one of the extra bars. You can negate that though. You know how I talked about the aftertouch takedown mechanic? Well, if you aftertouch takedown a rival, you get your bar back. The new boost feature is such a loved feature that every Burnout game since uses this system. The race types have also undergone a change. The pursuit events are gone, but it's not a problem, because Criterion might have taken an event away. Criterion also giveth an event type. Or a few more. Starting off with the worst one. Knockout events are the worst events. Now, as the event isn't boring, especially as you can wreck other racers, problem is that the event premise is that the last place to finish the lap gets eliminated. There are 5 rivals in a match, so that means that there are 5 laps, and some races drag on for so long. I'm glad the other new event is amazing. Regular races are normal races. Grand Prix events are 3 races that once finished progress the game by unlocking the new class. Burning Lap is a time attack event where you race against time. You get the max boost bar that you cannot lose when you wreck, and the boost gained by driving dangerously is much faster. The event type starts easily, but the more you progress, the more annoying traffic becomes. Yep, traffic is back to being an annoyance. Special events are pretty much burning laps that you get access by getting gold medals in certain races, and the reward is a postcard. The new event type, and my favorite event type in this game, is Road Rage. Now, in their infinite wisdom, Criterion asked themselves, what game mode should we make to capitalize and showcase our new takedown mechanic? And in their infinite wisdom, they went, ah yeah, let's make an event where the goal is to absolutely kill everyone in 3 minutes. Yeah, Road Rage is just that paced. You have 3 minutes, and you have to take down as much opponents as you possibly can. Go nuts. Another cool feature is that you crashing out has actual drawbacks. Your car deteriorates each wreck, and if you wreck enough times, the car will be so damaged that it will be in critical condition. One more crash, and you end the event. If you know what you are doing, however, you get to finish events with a rather high takedown count, cause a single murder is not enough and a vehicle manslaughter must be committed. And those takedowns matter, as takedowns give you score, and score matters in this game. So do takedowns. You see, the way you unlock cars is simple. In most of the classes you get to unlock 12 vehicles. You get 3 cars once you unlock a class. You can unlock a few more cars in face-offs or by winning certain races. And you get to unlock 2 cars per type by both reaching a score goal or doing takedown goals. The fact that so much attention was put into takedowns is such a cool thing. I can see you asking, Chris, you haven't talked about the crash mode. Did they undercook the crash mode? No. This shit is fucking amazing. Burnout 2 Crash Mode was revolutionary. 3 just takes it to another level. In the second game, your goal was to damage as many vehicles as possible, and the more vehicles you destroy, the bigger the multiplier gets. Skill in that game was purely down to you hitting a perfect spot and crashing most of the cars in the junctions. Burnout 3 has completely changed how Crash Mode functions. Firstly, the crash event count has went from 50 crash events to 100. A small bump for sure. The dev team also did a ton of resource management to the point where all 100 crash events are all different from each other for the most part. You won't see the same junction in a double-digit count. Second thing you notice is that the impact time is very much present in this mode, and that means you can steer your wreck efficiently into the traffic or markers, which I will talk about later. The crashes are much better, as the traffic is completely oblivious to the massive pileup of wrecks and ram into each other at high speeds. Camera work has also got a massive improvement where the traffic crashes feel real, but also more chaotic and batshit insane. The crashes feel like those French car movies where the police cars end up on a 20-car pileup, and I am here for that. Once everything calms down, you lose the ability to be the last car bender, and if enough cars have crashed, you get to activate the Crash Breaker. Did I tell you that this game is amazing? After you explode, not only do you damage other cars to the point where the damage is now more expensive, you also get airtime. And that means that you can steer a wreck once again. Additionally, after a few wins, Crash Breaker markers unlock and are spread across the junctions to cause even more chaos. Speaking of markers, you have money markers, which if you collect give you a fair bonus to your final score. A Heartbreaker marker, which cuts your score in half and removes markers. And the most important markers, the double and quad multiplier markers. Those are the MVP markers, as they can turn your bronze run into an easy gold run. One flaw to that is the fact that with the 4x marker, the event becomes trivial as the damages in dollars will be much higher than the amount required to get gold. However, and a huge however, watching the damages go into 7 digits range activates a ton of neuron. Crash mode is honestly quite amazing in this game. Audio is something that I will briefly touch upon. First and foremost, Criterion has cooked again when it comes to the audio stuff. The cars sound so good, the details you hear like switching gears, turbo blow off, or even boost itself just sounds epic. The takedown sounds are so good that people that have never played this game can go and say, oh, that is from that Burnout game. It's on the same level of recognition as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater's trick sound. Crashes? On another level when it comes to audio itself. Of course, the destruction sounds amazing with all of the impact, bending or scraping noises. But something that is more impactful is the ambient sound you get when you are in the impact time. The game goes for a dark and grim tone, with the music sounding super eerie and people in the background yelling and screaming. Fun fact, the screaming was supposedly more impactful and there were more people screaming. But EA wanted not to have a mature rating, so it was toned down for the full release. The big change to the franchise, however, was the music. Now with EA's budget and assistance, Criterion went to work and cooked up the best choice of licensed tracks for this game. This shit was peak 2000s music. And whenever songs like Breathing, Just Tonight, Or the undisputed GOAT that gets associated with this game, Come On by the One Bondies. I locked the fuck in. This has been the best addition to the game and franchise, and no one can prove otherwise. Now you might ask yourself, Chris, you have glazed this game so much. Surely there is something wrong with it. Nothing. No, seriously, this game is amazing. I mean, maybe some challenges are too challenging, but Oh yeah, this game has challenges. Takedowns are cool, but the devs thought of adding challenges on top of that for that extra neuron activation. You have 4 trophies, where in each trophy you have to do 5 challenges. Completing all of those unlock you a car. You have signature takedowns, which are completely cool and have sick names like Pillar Driller or Gone Fucking Fishing. I mean, hell, even crashes alone have special names like Busted. And I think that is it when it comes to Burnout 3. There is an online aspect of the game, but I couldn't get it to work on my emulator. Nevertheless, it's a peak game. And for a good reason. The fact that Criterion had this freedom to do something so insane is something that doesn't happen anymore in the current era, and I'm glad that Criterion had the ability to cook this game up, as this is by far my favorite game ever made, and maybe even the best racing game ever made. Now for something completely different. At this point, EA has purchased Criterion and decided to render their engine. Well, rest in fucking peace, Criterion and the Burnout franchise, I guess. Handhelds were the new cool thing in the mid-2000s, and EA wanted Burnout to be one of the games that could be played while you were in a bus, a toilet, or while you were away from your console. And in 2005, Burnout Legends released. Now, Burnout Legends is basically a mix of what made the first 3 games great, and mushed it all together into this neat little package. It released for the Nintendo DS and for the PSP, and I'm going to check the DS version as it is a weaker hardware. Now, I know that the game probably won't be as good as the console counterpart, but I have played Need for Speed Carbon and Underground Rivals on the DS, and those games are sick, so who knows how good this might be. It is Burnout after all.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
I'm speechless. No, seriously, how is this game pulling off what Need for Speed Most Wanted on the DS pulled off? How does something so good on the console get such a dogshit portable port? Where do I even start? I mean, okay, let me be positive for a second before my voices kick in. Compared to the PSP port, the DS port has 5 rivals compared to 3 rivals. Problem is that this game has knockout events, which means that you will have to endure this fucking dogshit for fucking longer. Another positive is that with the dual screen, we now have a minimap. It doesn't have a lap checkpoint, so that's a fucking disappointment. The visuals, they are decent. The damage model is fine, and the game in some aspects looks fine. Notice how I said some? Yeah, some maps look decent. Others look like dog shit, and the cherry on the motherfucking top is that the boost is horrible. The way it functions in this game is that it just pulls the camera back. The FOV does not increase, so already low FOV, while boosting, somehow feels slower than driving without boost. Additionally, this game has such severe ghosting, to the point where the worst instance of TA ghosting pales in comparison with this game's oftentimes nauseating ghosting. Not even constant 60 FPS can save this train wreck of a game. The hit collision? Well, what is that? Ramming the opponents is horrendous, and takedowns boils down to RNG. You can hit them with serious force, and whilst on the PSP port that would end up in wrecked opponents, on the DS port, nothing. You can alternatively just rear-end them and instantly wreck. However, what is the real kicker is the fact that the AI can rear-end you and they get wrecked. Collision detection with the walls and traffic has 2 states. Either you hit them at high force with no repercussions, or you will just touch the obstacles lightly and instantly wreck. Amazing. Music is bad. I mean, it's not bad, but the game only has a few tracks, and they get annoying. Now for the worst aspect of the game. Oh boy. The handling is atrocious. To put it simply, it's in a constant state of not wanting to handle. Now, the handling in Burnout games is simple. You have a brake to drift model that is super easy to learn and is super responsive and quick to the point where shifting weight is super easy and relatively quick that even a gorilla could learn it. So how did Visual Impact manage to fuck that up? By the way, if you did not know, this is one of the 2 games that was not made by Criterion, but to get to handling. To explain, if you want to drift, you need to wait. Yes, drifting is inertia based. It takes time to get into drift, and it's not the realistic type of not immediately starting to drift. It's more of a I'm geriatric and slow type of getting into a drift. Braking? It does nothing, unless you rapidly swap between the gas button and the brake button. And if you manage to drift a car, you are in for the most mind-boggling drifting experience you have ever seen. I mean, do I need to tell more? When you pull a drift, the camera perspective is so bad to the point where the drifts feel like your car is static and the whole scenery shifts instead. Additionally, shifting the weight while drifting is just perfect. Crash mode is depressing. This game is honestly just so bad to the point where if you want to experience the Burnout experience on the DS, you should just go play Sideswiped instead. It's a million times better. Hell, a more direct competitor would be Asphalt 2. Granted, it doesn't have the crash mode, and taking down cops grants you the cop killer reward. Gladly, the PSP port is so much better, purely because it was developed by Criterions themselves. To start off, it should be known that whilst the game is really good, it pales in comparison to the console port. It's still an amazing title nevertheless. It took all of the best aspects of Burnout 3 and made it work on a portable console from 2005. Visuals are quite nice. The game is locked to 30 FPS, which is honestly understandable, and some corners had to be cut. Sense of speed is pretty good. Granted, I also ran an FOV patch, so the game looked better on a 27-inch monitor. The carved deformation model, whilst not as good as 3, is still pretty respectable. Traffic is the only part where the deformation model is non-existent, which is unfortunate, but I can let that slide since it's on a PSP. The audio is mostly the same as Burnout 3. It's a bit compressed though. Music is good. It really fits the game and the franchise, which is a good thing, since this game and the next game on the list share the soundtrack. The events have stayed the same as Burnout 3, with the addition of the Pursuit events being back, and with that, cop cars per class were added. Speaking of cars, the game has all of the Burnout 3 cars, with the addition of Burnout 2 legendary cars. That's how the game calls them, not me, and collector cars. Legendary cars are unlocked in Pursuits. Collector cars are interesting. You see, you get to unlock one of the 5 collector cars. To get the rest of them, you need to play online and collect them there. Sadly, as I have no friends, I cannot show all of the cars, or that aspect, but I remember my school friend actually having all of the cars on his PSP. Crash mode is the same as Burnout 3, so it's pretty good. Only aspect that I do notice that is absent is the lack of multipliers, which makes the mode more challenging than Burnout 3's Crash mode. There are some flaws to the game. First one is that there are only 3 rivals, which means less chaos. The silver lining is that the lap knockout game mode now lasts considerably much shorter. The second issue is that the game is buggy. It's not insanely buggy, but there are a few instances of cars clipping under the ground, the physics being a little bit funky, and maps having a bit wonky visual meshes. And that is it when it comes to this game. It's honestly quite a cool title, considering what it was made for. It's the next game that set the tone of what Burnout should be. That game released a few days after Legends released. Wait a second, something sounds off. Whilst the last Burnout game was a game that reinvented the franchise, Revenge was that refinement that was needed. To further expand on that, Takedown was spectacular, Revenge is just gritty and dark, just like how the Takedown was supposed to be. Presentation wise, you can see two things. The color palette is much more seriously toned compared to the last game. However, the contrast of cars compared to the road is huge. Additionally, visually, this looks like a next-gen game, which it was. This was the first Burnout game that released on the Xbox 360. I'm not playing that version. Yes, the cool effects like the wear and tear on your car portrayed by the scratches, the more impacts you had, is undeniably cool. Two flaws. First flaw, I can't see shit. Second flaw, when the game was ported, the physics seemingly got changed. The cars are much more difficult to take down, to the point where on an actual 360 I had moments where I boosted into the opponent, T-boned them, and they went lol, lamau even. Because of that, I am playing the superior version, the PS2 version. Granted, the only real drawback is the fact that I can't import my MP3 songs, unlike in the Xbox 360 version. Additionally, I am running this with 360 version textures, so the game looks better than on an original PS2. Graphics wise, it's a great looking game for the console it's on. Burnout 3 looked beautiful, Revenge just optimizes it and makes it look just that little bit better. The fidelity is better, the crashes, and more accurately the damage model has taken a massive step forward, with crashes looking more realistic and the camera work being so amazing to the point where the crashes feel like a bystander has whipped his phone out and just started recording the crash. To get back to presentation, the menus are streamlined, but are honestly less of a mess than Takedowns. Like, I love 3's menu style, but Revenge's is easier to pick up and understand. Racing is mostly the same, the handling is there, the boost system is the same, taking down opponents is mostly stayed the same, with some new additions like the vertical takedown. All of this pale with the new additions which are quite huge. First off, there is a new rating system. It's an important system as it affects progress. Each event gives you 5 stars. Winning a race gives you 1 star, getting third takes off 1 star, and doing worse is useless. Just restart. To gain stars is simple. The races have a rating system where the more shit you do, the higher rating you get. You start off with okay, then you go to good, great, and when you improve your rating, you get amazing. Raising the rating can be done by driving aggressively, driving dangerously, doing near misses, driving in wrong lanes, drifting, and just generally going nuts. But most importantly, doing takedowns. Bonus points if you do trickshot takedowns where you use the traffic checked vehicles. In fact, that is also a new feature. You can traffic check traffic. In fact, the game has a whole new event which you will experience as a first race in the game called Traffic Attack, where the goal is to traffic check any light or medium weight cars to rack up a ton of cash in damages. Each lap gives you a multiplier, and as long as you don't run out of time, you can rack up a ton of money. It's a cool event showcasing the new feature. And yes, you can take down other cars with the traffic checked vehicles for that extra fuck you towards the enemy. The event is cool, until you realize that it's just traffic checking. There is no real risk, the traffic is stationary, and they really don't pose a threat to you. It loses its cool factor 30 seconds in the match, as you realize that you will probably have to do 2 laps of the event to get gold. Now, as much as traffic checking is a cool feature, I feel like it has made the game a bit too easy for me. You see, Traffic in 3 was perfect for me, as it actually posed a threat. In this game, if you're in your lane, there are only heavy vehicles that can crash you out. You are not immune though, as you can get wrecked yourself if the rivals traffic check you, and rivals wrecking you turns them into revenge rivals. You can see where the name's idea came from. Rivals are marked red, and it is in your best intention to wreck them as you get a lot of rating points. There's a new feature when it comes to getting taken out, but before that I will have to talk about the structure of the game a little bit more. You see, there are no more classes. The cars are all sports cars, and instead of classes, you have ranks. One cool thing about cars is that the more you progress, the better versions of the car you will get. There are 2 extra versions of the cars, each faster and more race car looking than the other. To get back to ranks, you start off as harmless, and the more stars you get, more ranks unlock. It's a cool feature that rewards you well for getting 5 stars each event. With that out of the way, once you reach the 5th rank, you get to experience the Crash Breaker feature. Whilst Crash Breaker is a known feature as it appeared in Takedown, it has been mainly reserved for the Crash mode. Revenge adds the Crash Breaker right into the battle racing by letting you explode by sacrificing all of your boost when you crash out. If there is an enemy close, you also get to take them out. It's a nice feature as it can turn unfortunate crashes into some great aftertouch takedowns. Each cars do have Crash Breaker levels, and the higher the level, bigger the explosion. Crash Breaker has been revamped for the Crash mode, but I will talk about the Crash mode a little bit later, as it too has had an overhaul. Other events have mostly stayed the same. Road Rage has now a timer that gets extended when you do a certain amount of takedowns, and when you get gold, it stops extending. Otherwise, it's mostly the same. Knockout events are good. Instead of doing multiple laps, you now have to just survive the 20-second countdown and not be in the last place. A massive improvement. Crash mode is just different. First and most notable difference is the lack of markers. Instead, the game just has more traffic, and the chaos has been stepped up to 11. Additionally, there is a target traffic card that is high value. Speaking of value, the value system has undergone an upgrade. Damaged cars cost as usual, but if they explode, they give you more cash in damages. And with the new Crash Breaker, you will want to explode as much cars as possible. The higher level of the Crash Breaker will obviously explode more cars, but it has two trade-offs. Firstly, higher Crash Breaker level cars will require more traffic wrecks to fill up the Crash Breaker bar. Secondly, it is harder to activate it, as now whenever the Crash Breaker fills up, you need to spam the Crash Breaker button to utilize 100% of it. Of course, on higher levels, you need to spam the button more. One silver lining is the fact that you can do multiple Crash Breakers. With that, I can really only talk about the music. Whilst Takedown has by far my favorite soundtrack in a video game, this game is pretty high up. The music is more fitting than the previous game, but it just doesn't have that much impact selection-wise, unlike Takedown. One issue I have with this game, unlike in Takedown, are the tracks and its track design. Now in Takedown, Europe maps kinda sucked, as most of them had bits of railings and buildings that poked out, effectively making you crash out instantly, which is amplified by the sense of speed, where you can tend to not react to the wall. One thing that helped in that game a little bit was the fact that the game was visually bright and colorful. Track-wise, this game is rough. Corners are sticking out on every track, goddamn near everywhere. Additionally, the game now has shortcuts that are marked with blue light points. Entering them is a gamble. On one point, you might get actual shortcuts that are beneficial, or you will get shortcuts with said sticking obstacles, which in most cases will cause you to crash. Additionally, the game is darker visual tone-wise, which means that seeing the obstacles is much harder, especially with the sense of speed, which is the same as Burnout 3. I think that is it. I mean, look, the game is just amazing. The cutscenes are great, especially the takedown trophies, but in its core, it's the same as Burnout 3. I know you folk probably wanted me to talk more about this game, but most of the stuff I talk about this game, I talked about in Takedown. Is this my favorite Burnout game? No. I know most of you will get upset, but, and a big but, it's definitely my second favorite Burnout game, and it's honestly quite close. The next Burnout game is an interesting case, as it's the second game that was not developed by Criterion, as Criterion was busy working on two projects. One was Black, which honestly could be a whole video by itself, and another Burnout game that needed time to make, and the lack of Criterion's leadership shows. This is Burnout Dominator. Now okay, look, in its core this is a Burnout game. It's just that the game is an unfortunate product of the dev team not knowing what makes a Burnout game so amazing. The game does have a ton of good stuff. Starting off with the visuals, for a game on the PS2, and more subsequently the PSP, it looks fine. The maps are visually pretty good looking. Menu design is so mid-2000s edgy, and my god has it aged poorly, goddamn. Presentation wise, it's a mix and match between Takedown and Revenge. Whilst it has the event structure of Revenge, it has brought back the classes of Takedown. Speaking of car classes, and more importantly cars themselves, my fucking god, the cars look so goddamn ugly, holy shit. I don't know what crack the DEA UK team make, but these designs are interesting to say at the least. Driving them is good. The handling model honestly feels great. It definitely feels better than the last few games, but that is purely also down to the cars being a bit slower, and the grip for the cars is seemingly increased. Another change regarding driving, and a rather big one, is the boost. Firstly, the boost is now one big bar, instead of the previous titles where you could gain extra bars when taking down enemies. Gaining the boost works the same way as they did in the last two games. One change is that the Burnout feature is back. Once you fill your bar, you can use the boost, and while boosting, dangerous driving fills up the secondary arrows bar that once full refreshes your boost meter when you drain it, just like how it was in Burnout 2. Now this is cool, but there are some flaws. Firstly, the boost in general feels a little bit weak. You realistically only gain a few kilometers per hour, which is weak, and a supercharged boost doesn't really add more speed to make it feel super useful. Another issue is the fact that the rivals also use boost when you use boost, and you catching up to the rivals is much harder and more annoying compared to the previous titles, where the boost really felt like something that would sway the event in your favor. Events that are relying on you pulling high burnout combos is a whole other can of worms, but the silver lining is that filling up the supercharge meter is honestly easy, especially as a takedown fills up the meter fully. Taking down opponents is, well, you know how I stated earlier that the 360 version of Revenge did something to the physics, making takedowns significantly harder? Well, Dominator has the same issue. Taking down the rivals is much harder, but that is purely because the rivals themselves are much more harder and aggressive. They now actually try to fight back and avoid crashing. Some people might like the extra challenge, but in a game where the main cool aspect of the game is wrecking opponents, hitting them at high speed and force, and seeing the rivals not wreck, is just bad. Crash mode is gone. I mean, look, this game is definitely a filler game, and I believe that realistically Criterion should be the only one to make a crash mode. The omission is a bit whack, but in the end the result it was for the better, as the next Burnout game would very likely have a great crash mode. Music is fine. It's not as good as the previous games, or more accurately, not as impactful, but I guess it's serviceable. Now for the flaws that I do think are really annoying. The track design is not that great. There are definitely some standout maps, but a few bunch of them are definitely just messed design-wise. Additionally, some maps get a bit confusing direction-wise, to where you might go take a wrong turn without you knowing it until you see the border. Traffic fucking sucks. This game has a rather dense traffic system, and traffic checking is completely absent, which this game really needed. God, this traffic is annoying, amplified by the fact that you can wreck out so much easier compared to the previous games. And with the camera shake you get while supercharging, reacting to the traffic can get a bit impossible. At least for me, a visually impaired person. Skill issue, I know. This game isn't bad, honestly. Some people tend to be a bit too critical regarding this game, and whilst the crash event is absent, it's not too much of a loss. I can understand, however, and I stand by this fact. If you have time to play only one of the games in this franchise, you should honestly just play 3 or Revenge, as this game offers less content than the previous games. Never mind, this game has Girlfriend by Avril Lavigne, in 3 separate languages by the way. 10 out of 10 game of the year material. The next game, however, is either the most beloved Burnout game according to some people, or is a bad game according to others. All I can say is that Burnout Paradise was weird. Burnout Paradise is the game that people seem to hold in a rather high regard, and I frankly do not know why. Don't get me wrong, I am not saying that this game is bad, but compared to 3 and Revenge, this game to me isn't that great. I am jumping ahead though. Let me reel myself back and talk about the game itself. Important thing that I will mention and I have to mention is that I am not playing the remastered version or the PC version, or hell, even the console versions that have been patched. I am playing the 1.0 version of the game, as that version has a ton of differences compared to the current latest version of the games, both original and remastered. In fact, the changes range from something small like different splash screen to rather huge changes like the atmosphere shifts when your car gets into critical condition, where the contrast is sent to 11 and the only color you see is red, and all of the shades of red. The difficulty of the game is also changed. The earlier versions of the game were much harder, with the AI being more aggressive and faster, to even some events having higher wind conditions. One last change where the earlier version of the game beat the fuck of the current ones is the fact that the crashes were simply better. The cars were lighter and were more prone to flipping and rolling in a crash. I guess they increased the way to showcase driveaways more, which I will talk about later. But the early game crashes just looked incredible and quite honestly were the best looking crashes in the entirety of the game. Not to discredit the current version, it has some cool stuff, like the game having a restart option, which I will talk about later as well, or the fact that one of the updates added dynamic day and night cycle, but the early versions of the game were just so much better. Anyways, to get back to Paradise. Visually, this game is outstanding. For 2008, it looks like a newer game. Granted, in 2008 alone we had games that had amazing details and looked great, like Midnight Club LA, Grid, and so on. The crashing itself is amazing. In a matter of 3 years they overhauled the damage model to the point where it's unrecognizable compared to the previous games. Seriously, the crashing is incredibly impressive. Persistent damage has expanded. Whilst Burnout Revenge had scratches on the Xbox 360 version of the game, in Paradise the damage is now shown. Hits will now physically deform your cars, making your pristine cars look like this. A new addition to the game are the driveaways. If you crash your car, but you miss the vital parts like the wheels or the engine, you can simply drive away like nothing happened. It's a cool feature in free roams, but in races you want to avoid driveaways as you will most definitely be facing the wrong direction, losing time. Crashing itself is just cinema. Takedowns are a smaller improvement over Revenge, but getting wrecked? Yeah, this shit is very fucking tight. Slow motion of the parts crumbling alongside with the audio of crunching and bending metal is audio and video orgasmic. Only real drawbacks is the fact that the game was supposed to have the ability to rip the cars apart, even splitting them open, but it was cut early in development as it was just too expensive. Additionally, and more annoying, is the fact that there is no aftertouch or impact time, which means that you cannot take out the rivals in a clutch. Impact time was present in the beta version of the game, but for some reason it was removed. Speaking of rivals, it's time to talk about the biggest elephant in the room, the presentation itself. First thing you will notice, or more accurately you won't, are the menus. This game is structured in a way where everything is in the world. Events are unlocked by finding them on the intersection, switching cars is now done in garages, and new additions are the repair station which will repair your cars in the road rage and marked man events, spray shop that changes the color of your car, and refill station which is used to refill your boost. All those have to be found on the map manually and you have to find them while free roaming. Oh yeah, this game has an open world. The map itself is visually great. There are a ton of sections of the map that are visually different from the others, and the map structure itself is pretty neat. You can do so much in the map, it's honestly quite insane. There are things like super jumps, billboard, and a ton of cool things to do. In fact, the new game mode, Stunt Run, capitalizes on the map. The event's goal is to do tricks that will increase your score massively. I'm not a fan of this game mode. It's probably a skill issue, but you really have a few spots where you can have a ton of multipliers. A mechanic to the mode is that there is a timer that counts down after you do a trick, and if the timer runs out by you not doing a trick, the score is added to your final score. This is a funny feature as there is a cool mechanic where you can do combos after the time is up, and as long as you are doing constant tricks and you haven't crashed, you can do tricks for pretty much unlimited time. Marked Man is a new game mode where you have to reach the goal point without you getting wrecked. This game mode is basically the inverse road rage. Repair shops are crucial, especially if the cars you drive have low strength. Burning Lab has had a change. You have to reach the point and if you reach it before the timer ends, you unlock the new, better variant of the car. Each burning event is car locked. The biggest changes, however, are the race events. Now, new racing games do two styles when they do racing types. You have closed circuit racing, like in games like the Need for Speed Most Wanted, and you have open checkpoint racing in the games like Forza Horizon. This game does neither. Instead, the game gives you one goal checkpoint. No barriers, no checkpoints, and just pure ass. I hate this feature. Well, yes, the game gives you an auto-visual cue where you need to steer to the end goal, but with the music, the game's great sense of speed and danger, you can end up ignoring the indicators to the point where you will spend most of the time looking at the minimap out of sheer panic of missing the route. Speaking of routes and racing events, the race events start on an event marker, which are scattered across the map. But the kicker to that is that the game only has 8 end goals, which means that the races will boil down to just finding the most optimal route with the least turns to simply win. It's really a boring way of playing the game. And whilst you can do the scenic route with more corners, the game doesn't really want you to do that, as both the game itself is finding the most optimal route with the indicators and the AI, especially in the earlier versions of the game, going the same optimal way. Of course, some other rivals will go the scenic route, but those cars will not win or do well. It's honestly a flawed system, and it's just kinda sad and aggravating that the main event type is the worst one. It only gets amplified as in the earlier versions of the game, and primarily the 1.0 version, where the AI is harder. If you lose, you will have to drive all the way back to the event to restart it. You see, Criterion in their infinite, ever-expanding wisdom decided that restarting the events is overrated, so they just did not have the restart event option in the free burn menu. It only has been added later down the line in an update, after people complained. Road Rage is alright. Open world makes it more fun, as you can go anywhere you want, and you can watch the AI frantically lose their shit and rubber band like crazy to catch up to you. Additionally, when you stop the event by simply stopping the car, the AI will try to get you going by ramming into you. It's honestly kinda silly. Crash mode... Wait, where is it? Yeah, with the whole removal of the menus, Crash mode also took a hit. I mean, they could have made it either as a separate event type that you start in an intersection, or it could have been dynamic where you could have started crash mode after you crashed into multiple traffic cars with even more traffic, just driving in and crashing. Instead, we got a game mode called Showtime, where once you activate it, you use boost to jump up and steer your wreck into other traffic cars or buses, which give you extra multipliers. This game mode is garbage. It has absolutely zero purpose in its existence, as you do not gain any cars from it. And even if you do end up playing the event, some cars are better equipped to deal with the event than some others due to their boost type. To talk about the cars, the car list is fairly decent, and in the latest version is huge with a ton of DLC cars. They went back to the older Burnout game style where later cars are faster than the others, although you can't see that as the game does not have a speedometer, although it is for the better, as the game has a stupid, if not the most stupidest audio mechanic that has been ever conceived: fake speed. You see, if I enable the speedometer, and if I reach the top speed, you would expect that the car audio would reach top RPM. It does not do that. In fact, it keeps on accelerating, and even shifts to a higher gear, while driving at the max speed the car has. Good job, Criterion. To get back to cars, they are split into 3 classes: speed, stunt, and aggression. The real difference between those classes is the way you earn boost. The speed class boost, marked by cars having yellow flames, is gained by doing burnouts, like the old games. The stunt class boost, marked by cars having green flames, is gained mostly by doing stunts, and is the quickest way to gain boost in its class. The aggression class boost, marked by cars having red flames, is gained by taking down the opponents, and just like in Takedown and Revenge, has the ability to increase the boost bar when you take the opponents down, or decrease when you crash. The idea is cool, but realistically, I really would have preferred if I could choose the boost type myself. Oh, they added the DLC car with interchangeable boost type. Okay, Criterion, I see your game. A new boost type was added in the DLC where, with this car, you could start the boost, but the only way to stop boosting would be to also stop driving. Unwillingly. Unlocking cars is done by either winning certain races and getting them in the garage, or unlocking them in the open world and crashing them out. Cool feature. It really makes you feel like you have earned those cars that you take down. Huge flaw. There is a period where you don't get to see your rival at all, because of course it wouldn't. Audio is amazing. The cars sound aggressive, bassy, and it's amazing to listen at. Granted, the whole audio part of this game is top tier. Music is also great. The game has some serious bangers like Cities in Dust by Junkie XL, I Wanna Rock by Twisted Sisters, Rusty Cage by Soundgarden, and much more. Additionally, this game also takes Dominator's track and includes them in this game. Another great addition is that the game uses Burnout 1 and 2's original music, and Burnout 3's cut music, and honestly ties this all together into this one fine package. And let me not forget about Paradise City by Guns N' Roses, a genuine S-tier song that this game based itself on with the title and the map, and even uses as the main theme of the game. This game's soundtrack is by far the best part of the game. One important aspect I didn't talk about is the online mode. You see, people tend to agree that online mode is the best aspect of this game. Sadly, as I don't have any friends, and generally am not a fan of online racing games, this section of the game will sadly not be talked about.
I smell you talking about Burnout.
I'm yapping about the Burnout Online aspect, you know.
It's actually kind of good though. It's kind of like the best part of the game IMO. Like, to me, the Burnout Paradise Online section is kind of good in a similar way to like Dirt 3's Online, if you ever experienced that.
I did.
Which is where it's both got a combination of like standard races, as you come to expect, but also like if you're not a fan of the standard races or the handling model or whatever, there's still good, very unique game modes that the game incorporates that are a lot of fun. Like one of my favorite, I think, was Marked Man, where you basically just like you're in a group of, let's say, 4 or 5 people. And at the start of each round, one of the 5 gets randomly selected as the marked man, and it's their job to run like hell, and everyone else's job to take them out within about 2 minutes. And if they don't, then the marked man gets a point, and then a new marked man is selected for the next round. And that's a really fun game mode to have, especially when there's a lot of people. Because if I remember correctly, the marked man can't see where anyone else is, but everyone else can see where they are. So it's a weird game of like always peeking around corners and checking for things. It's similar to like Infection or Infected game modes in that way from Dirt and Forza Horizon.
And what about the social aspect of the game?
Yeah, it is fairly decent. It has definitely aged a bit because they didn't really change it with the remaster, and it's still effectively the same as it was in 2008. So it's definitely aged, but I'd say especially for that time, it was very good social aspect-wise, giving you like decent communication tools and decent ways to like start the different game modes and giving you a lot of settings and different things.
Ah, okay, good to know. I think that's it. What? And that is it when it comes to the Paradise. It did have a re-release in 2018 as a remaster, but my god, it's a complete dogshit port on the PC that struggles to run, and crashes if you do as little as look at it the funny way. And that's it from Burnout. Wait, what do you mean there's crash? I'm a big Burnout fan, and if there was a game like that, I would know about it, as it would probably be a good game if it existed. But yeah, Burnout's last game was 17 years ago. What happened? EA happened. You see, Need for Speed was in a shitshow state, Pro Street criminally undersold, mostly due to official clowns, I mean reviewers like IGN panning it for not being like Most Wanted, and people being gullible enough to listen to reviewers. Undercover was Undercover, and Shift was a complete stark difference to the franchise that the hardcore fans did not like. So EA did the most logical thing, by lifting Criterion from working on Burnout for the time being to work on a new title, that being Hot Pursuit. And whilst Hot Pursuit is really good, it's not a Burnout game, so I can't really cover it here. But what you should know is that the game was a critical success and Criterion got to work on the next game, Most Wanted 2. Honestly, it's a miracle Most Wanted 2 even came out, as it was a completely separate game story and gameplay wise in the early betas. The game did alright, but EA decided to kill off Criterion by opening Ghost Games and moving around 80% of Criterion's dev team to Ghost Games. Alex Ward and Fiona Sperry then proceeded to leave Criterion, as they did not like working under EA, as they saw that EA was heavily profit-oriented, to start Three Fields Entertainment. They made a few games prior to 2019, and 2 of them were inspired by Burnout's Crash mode. In 2019 though, Three Fields Entertainment released Dangerous Driving, and oh boy. Look, I know being a small team studio is hard, but my god, this is not good. I really don't know where to start. The presentation is Burnout 3. They are trying to match that game's aesthetic and presentation, and honestly it is good. I cannot complain about that. New feature of persistent wrecks is also cool, and it spices up the gameplay a fair bit. That is all of the good stuff. The handling is weird. Whilst I can see that they try to mimic Burnout games, the drifting itself feels like it's on rails, and stopping is quite hilarious as it doesn't really have any impact and feels like you are stopping nearly instantly. The air physics is goofy and silly and super unrealistic. What is this air physics? What was that? No. I'm sorry. What was that? What is this? I'm sorry. Excuse me? Excuse me? And you know what's hilarious? This is an SUV. What are you? Look at it. It does not feel real. Oh, look. Wait. You can steer in the air, I think. Oh, yeah. You can steer in the air. The car selection is not that great. Whilst there are multiple classes, each class has one car that is just remodeled to have extra body kits. The AI rubber bands like crazy. When you boost, they also boost, which means that they will be behind you no matter what. Sure, it makes the races more tense in theory, but in execution, the AI is not as nearly as aggressive as they should be. I got crashed out by crashing into traffic more times than I have been taken down by the rivals. Speaking of crashes, my god, they are bad. They feel bland. Takedowns do not have any real impact or great camera work like the Burnout games had. Crashing out is pretty much the same as is in the Burnout games, with a few exceptions. A few crucial ones. While there is aftertouch and impact time, you can only aftertouch take down one rival, which is a stupid decision. Another stupid decision is that there is a fade out before you respawn, and is annoying seeing a rival go into you and seemingly looking like they're about to crash into you, only to fade out. Maps they exist. Audio work is a disappointment. The car sounds are nothing special. The music is consisted of one licensed song that plays on the menu and gets annoying after a bit. That's it. I know that this is a small team, you can't really afford to get something licensed, but honestly look at Burnout 1 and 2. Those games had their own music, and the music selection was great. This game uses Spotify Premium integration, but I am not a consumer, so I do not use that. In fact, modern games suck. I want my MP3 folder where I could drop down my songs back in games. Yeah, that is really all I want to talk about this game, as it's a nothing burger, and if it was decent at any of the aspects, then I would probably talk about it for longer, but in its state, it's a rough game. Three Fields Entertainment is making another game though, which was planned to be Dangerous Driving 2, which featured an open world map, but with THQ as a publisher they decided to turn that game into Recreation. A game that the more I look at, the less appealing it is, as it seems more like a Trackmania ripoff with crashing. Well, we can at least live in comfort that emulation is good nowadays, and if you want to experience peak, you can do that in 4K with mods as well. Because Burnout 3 becomes infinitely more fun with the Crash Breaker mod. Maybe we can get BeamNG devs to make a Burnout-like game mode. I don't know. That's it from me. Sorry it took so long. ADHD is a bit of a bitch. The next video might take longer or shorter as I have some larger plans for it, but I will see what happens. See you all soon.